between 25 and 30 days to get you a full answer from the time we actually start the process. The reason for that is the appraisal process is more involved, as it should be. There are some regulatory things that have to be done. The pre-approval part, where we check your information out, usually only takes a couple days, though. It's usually checking the house out, which we're going to come back to in a couple minutes, that takes more of the time. It's the process of verifying the information on the house, because you don't have a house picked out today, so we can't start that process today. But we can collect documents from you like pay stubs. We can get your Social Security, date of birth, home address, and so on, run a credit report, and know where you stand with that. There are 3 choices for how you cover closing costs. What are closing costs? Think of it this way. I give you $10. I send you down the street to the store to buy a $10 shirt. Take the $10 to the cash register and try and buy your shirt.
Taxes.
Can't get right. There's taxes. I work at the car lot. How much does a $10,000 car cost?
More than $10,000.
Tax, title. What are you going to do before you drive the car off the lot if you're smart? You're going to call your insurance company and set up insurance, right? All that other stuff is add on to the actual price. You buy a house for $100,000. A $100,000 house doesn't cost $100,000 because you're probably going to get, and I will highly encourage you to get, a home inspection. We're going to require an appraisal. There's going to be a title bill. You're going to get a title insurance policy that guarantees title. You're going to set up your first year insurance. We're going to start an escrow account for you because there's going to be a gap between when you close and when you make your first payment. All of that stuff is referred to in the business as closing cost. Money you need to buy your house except your down payment. There are 3 choices for how you cover closing costs. We will call them A, B, and C. A is pretty easy to understand. Pay it out of pocket. So now instead of just needing a down payment, you need $3,000 or $4,000 to cover all that extra stuff. So you need money for the appraisal, you need money to pay the home inspector, you need whatever. For most first-time home buyers, that is difficult because they're, in many cases, tight on cash to come up with just the down payment, let alone the extra money for the closing cost. The second choice is a little more complicated. We can pay them. Everybody says, that's great. That sounds fantastic. Trust me, there's no such thing as a free lunch. There's a gimmick. Why do we do that? We talked about points which are a legal bribe, right? You pay extra up front, you get a lower interest rate. At some higher interest rate, the secondary market pays us more money. So instead of 4.25 at 4.5, they pay us more. We're happy with how much money we make at 4.25. So if you take 4.5, we will give you the extra proceeds the secondary market gives us. So you pay a higher rate, and then we cover part of the closing cost. It's not a free lunch. It's just we give you the excess we get because you took a higher interest rate. In most cases, home buyers don't pick that because the third choice is you can have the seller pay them. And everybody says, that sounds fantastic, but what if they won't?
You're in trouble.
Sellers don't really care. What I'm about to explain to you is stupid. Please don't ask me to justify it. After 20 years, I'm so over it, it doesn't even matter. The rule's been in place for a long, long time. I don't know why it is this way. I don't even try and think about it. I just tell you that this is what it is, and we work from there. You buy a house for $100,000 that would appraise for $105,000. And you show up here with a smile on your face next Monday with a contract and say, hey, but because it'll appraise for more than I paid for it, I want to roll my closing costs in. And on every type of loan that we currently offer, the answer is, can't do it. Watch my right eye very carefully. But instead, when you and your real estate agent wrote the offer on Friday, you wrote it up at $104,500 with the stipulation that the seller would cover $4,500 of your closing cost. Now, who really paid your cost? You did. They would have taken $100,000, but you write the agreement up at $104,500 with the stipulation they cover the $4,500. Now all you need is a down payment based on the $104,500 sale price, and all of your other costs are covered. So your appraisal, your first year insurance, the tax, title, out the door stuff is wrapped into the price. If you can logically and intuitively explain to me why it's okay to do it when the seller pays it because you paid them more, but not okay if it would appraise higher, you can roll them in. You're smarter than me because I can't explain it. I've given up trying to do it. The overwhelming majority of first-time home buyers build that in. But what that means is you need to call me or email me or text me or get in touch or have your agent get in touch before you write the offer so we get the just right amount. We don't want to ask for too much. We don't want to ask for too little. We want to hit the Goldilocks amount and get the just right. So we ask for the appropriate amount back on that house. If you buy a bank loan, the amount you need back is different than if you buy a regular house. You buy a house in Wood County, the taxes are prorated different than in Lucas County. You buy one in Sandusky County, the title bill split is different. You buy one in Michigan, the taxes are considerably different than how we do it down here. So it's situational, and my job is to ask enough questions ahead of time to make sure we get the just right amount to help you so that you can roll all that stuff in. Your house payment will be due more than a month and less than no more than 60 days after you close. So if you close, by the way, one of the things you often hear is it's better to close the end of the month because less money's due. Technically, that's true. Close on April 30th, only 1 day of interest is collected at closing. Your first payment's due June 1st. Close on May 1st, 31 days of interest is due at the closing, but now you don't pay till July 1st. it all comes out in the wash. Your mortgage is going to be due on the 1st, late on the 15th. You can still get calls to remind you that the payment's due. You're technically late after the 1st, but you don't pay a late fee. So you get reminders, but it won't report to the credit bureau as late until it's more than 30 days late. So between 0 and 15, might get reminder calls, but you pay it no late fee. Between the 15th and 30th, reminder calls and a late fee. After the 30th, it dings your credit. But they're all due on the 1st, late on the 15th. Should you choose to do an adjustable rate, at the time you choose to do that, we're going to have you come back in, or I'm going to get you on the phone or through some email and explain the specifics of whatever adjustable rate you might have wanted to pick or might want to consider, because there are a myriad of options, and we literally could sit here until tomorrow afternoon going through all the different ways that adjustables can work. The easiest way to explain it to people, I say, why would I ever pick an adjustable? I have a customer right now who's doing a 5-year adjustable. He's transferred here for his job. He knows he will be here 3 years. The rate on a 5-year adjustable is 0.5% lower than the rate on the 30-year fixed. So for his 3 years, he gets 0.5% lower rate with almost no risk of what rates will be in 5 years, because he's not planning on being here. His employer's already told him, you are here for a training exercise to learn how to be a plant manager, and then we're sending you to a plant that's not in Toledo. So he's learning the job here and won't be here. Having said all that, there are 4 things that go into getting approved, which is why you really wanted to come here today to figure out, can I do this? Can I actually go buy a house? If these 4 things check out, guess what? We're done. You're headed to a closing, you're going to be a homeowner. Any one of these 4 things doesn't check out, not going to be a homeowner until we solve that problem. We call them the 4 C's. Your capacity, credit history, capital, and collateral. I'm going to work in reverse order. The collateral is the house. It's why we encourage you to do a home inspection. It's why we check the title. It's why we want to know what the taxes and insurance are. It's why we do an appraisal. Okay? It's why we won't let you close unless you have insurance on it, because we don't want our collateral burning down. It's why we do the appraisal, to make sure that you're not paying more than the house is worth, because we don't want to loan more than the house is worth. All of the collateral piece can't be done until after you pick out a house. So when we do a pre-approval, which is what we're starting today, we don't have a piece of collateral selected. When you have the collateral selected, and to be honest, that's what takes most of the time in a mortgage. You're going to get a home inspection. That's going to take a week or 10 days or as much as 2 weeks. We're going to order an appraisal, and that's going to take a week or 10 days. We're going to get title work back that takes 3 or 4 days. And all that stuff is not checking you out. It's checking out the house you've selected to make sure it's okay. And that process takes some time. Capital is probably the easiest one to understand and the one that gives people the most frustration. Capital is cash. Do you have enough? Where did it come from? Things here that aren't true. Money has to be in the bank a certain amount of time. No. If the money comes into the bank during the time that we are required to get your bank statements, so on most products, we require 2 months of bank statements, so 60 days of history of your bank account. If you have a wacky, inexplicable deposit during that time, that isn't going to fly. We have to figure out where it came from or document it accordingly. If you got a tax refund, and that was your large deposit, that's your money. We can document it from a copy of your tax return showing the amount of the refund, match it up to what the deposit that says from Treasury is. You can use it the next day. No seasoning, no 60 days, no waiting. Grandma passed, you got an inheritance check, it came from the trustee. We could get copies of that paper trail and you can use it the next day. You get a gift from your mom. Same thing, there's a way to document it, you can use it. You put your paychecks in. It's your money, you can use it. I had someone once get an insurance claim. They had a motorcycle that was crunched by someone else in a claim. They decided not to replace the motorcycle, use the money from the proceeds, because they owned it free and clear, toward buying a house. We got a copy of the check from State Farm. They could use it right away. What I say to everybody is, before you go sticking wacky money in your account that's from an inexplicable source during this process, call me so we can talk about whether it's easy to document or not. If we can document it, you're good to go. But that's why we ask for bank statements, so we can figure out where the money come from, what is it. You start a pre-approval today, we get 2 months of bank statements, and you don't find a house for a month and a half. There's a shelf life on them, so we may ask you for fresh documents later in the process to update them just to verify that the money's still there, because the ones you gave us have gotten too old. So they have to be current documents at the time you actually find a house. We want to verify you have an acceptable credit history. So before you came in today, when I talked to you on the phone yesterday about your pre-approval, we actually ran your credit report. There are 3 national repositories that hold credit scores. Credit scores range from around 400 on the low end to a little more than 800 on the high end. The average score in America right now is about 670. That's about normal. Your scores were 680, 694, and 704. So they are above average for a first-time home buyer, and they are perfectly acceptable. So they work. They are acceptable, and they give us options on a wide variety of products. If your credit score was a little lower, it might limit the amount of products we have. And if it was higher on a couple products, as an example, the mortgage insurance, it would be cheaper the higher your credit score goes. And before you leave today, I'll show you that credit report and we can go over some little tricks that you'd want to know to monitor how that works. But your credit history is absolutely acceptable. If it wasn't acceptable, we either wouldn't have had you come in or we'd have been spending most of our time today talking about how to remedy the credit problem, because that would mean you're not ready to buy or start the process today. Your capacity, I think, is the hardest one for people to understand how we calculate it, but probably the easiest in your mind to understand from your end. It's your ability to repay the money. It's often referred to as a debt-to-income ratio. We look at where you work, how long you've been there. We try to establish the stability of your income to figure out what qualifying income is. Your current income may be different than your qualifying income. You may have gotten a bonus, but you've never gotten a bonus before. The employer won't comment on the bonus, so your current income is higher than what we would qualify you at, which is just your base pay. Some things you hear that aren't true. Got to have 2 years on the job. We look at the most recent 2-year history to determine whether your income is stable. There's a file on my desk right now I'm working on. She's worked at Toledo Hospital for 6 years. She's never made more than $20,000. She's already made almost $30,000 this year. Why? Because during that time she went back to school. She graduated RN school in December, got her RN diploma, and started working as an RN, not making the $11 an hour as a medical billing technician that she had been doing, but as an RN at $26 an hour, 36 hours a week. So we got a copy of her transcript, got a copy of her diploma, her license, verified with the employer the change. We are going to count not a 2-year average of her income, but 100% of her 36 hours a week at $26 an hour. So again, it's not necessarily that we average it. You get a raise, you get credit for the raise, as long as we can document when it was and how much it is. So we want to be reasonable. Somewhere around 40 or 45% of your gross monthly income can go toward all of your debts, including your new house payment. So you make about $3,000 a month, so let's use 40% of that, which is $1,200. All we're going to then do is very scientifically subtract the obligations that you have that are counted as debts. Alimony or child support, car payments, student loan payments, credit card payments, and so on. Want to make the amount you qualify for go down? Go buy a shiny new Mercedes-Benz with an $820 payment tomorrow, and you qualify for essentially nothing because you already have about $300 a month in debt. You buy the $800 car, that leaves you with a $100 house payment you qualify for, which isn't going to buy much. And oh, by the way, that includes taxes and insurance. So with taxes and insurance, you probably qualify for zero. Want to make the amount go up? Pay something off. Many times with first-time hires, they have extra money off to the side. Again, let's say grandma's willing to help out and gives you $10,000. In some cases, it's better to take part of the $10,000, pay a car off, get rid of a $350 payment, and then you qualify for a higher house payment. But as things stand, with $300 a month in debt, you qualify for between a $900 and $1,100 house payment. That's at 40 to 45%. You may not want to go that high. You told me on the phone you wanted a $750 payment. So if you want less than we say the maximum is, you're okay as long as you don't lose your income or go further in debt. I don't care how good the sale is at Art Van this weekend. Don't do it. Wait till after you close. Don't take out any new debts between now and the time we close. And before you would do something like that, call me. Don't even put in the inquiry because it'll show up and then I have to bug you about it. And it can affect your score if we would ever have to run a new report because your old report expired because they have a shelf life. Those 4 things check out, and guess what?
Get in the house.
Sitting here today, we know your debt-to-income ratio is okay for the payment you're comfortable with. We know your credit's okay. You told me that mom would help out with the down payment, so you have enough to get the down payment. So other than making copies of your pay stubs, getting a copy of your driver's license, and filling out some gift information for your mom, we'll have your pre-approval done in a day or so. Get you a letter and get you out looking. Now, we're talking about the collateral. I think you mentioned you don't have a real estate agent yet. I strongly recommend we get you hooked up with what's called a buyer's agent. So let's pretend there's 3 houses on the same street for sale. A red one, a green one, and a purple one. If you call the agent who has the sign in the yard, they have already contractually been obligated to work for the seller. So think of an attorney situation. They represent the seller's interest in the transaction. It's not that they're to lie to you, but their job isn't necessarily to tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help them God. So they're not going to tell you the seller's bottom line. They're not going to tell you everything they know about why the seller's selling it or whatever else. But they only get paid if you buy that house because they have that listing. Okay, so they only get paid if that house sells. A buyer's agent can show you any house listed by any real estate company. And they honestly don't care which one you buy. Here's why. All those selling agents, so every person that puts sign in the yard, is going to offer what's called a co-broke, a split of the commission to a buyer's agent who brings a qualified buyer to that home. So they're going to pay your agent's commission. So it doesn't cost you anything to use a buyer's agent. But they now work contractually and represent your interest in the transaction. So they really don't care which house you buy because they're getting paid relatively the same no matter which one you buy. So you want the green one, but they could say, hey, I know you like the green one, but the purple one's actually a better house in my opinion for the following reasons. They're not going to stop you from buying the other one, but that's closer to the busy street. It's noisier. The yard's kind of wacky shaped. So I know you like the decor, but for the cost to update the decor in this other one based on where it's priced, it's a significantly better home in my opinion. Here's why. More important than that, they can get you hot, fresh information. You go to Realtor.com or one of the websites, that information is delayed as much as 7 or 10 days sometimes from when new houses come on. I'm working on a file right now that's going to close in a couple days. It's a foreclosure. It was listed on a Thursday. It had an accepted offer by Friday at noon. It had 13 showings in the first 12 hours. It had 11 offers. There was never even a sign in the yard yet. The sign that went in the yard said sale pending. It sold for more than the asking price. People say, why would anybody pay more than they're asking? Because the bank was stupid. They listed it at $57,900 and it's an $80,000 house. Hence the activity, hence the offers, hence it sells in a day and sells above the asking price. So remember, you have to look at enough houses to have an idea why in certain cases you might be willing to pay more than the asking price because somebody blew it on the asking price or they were highly motivated to get rid of it. I have a customer right now, they're cutting the price on their house in the next 2 days, $10,000. Why? Because they can only qualify if their current house is sold and they have a beautiful home. But they found their dream home, can't buy it unless theirs is sold, so they're going to cut the price down to make it the most attractive home in their area, and it will sell this weekend. I guarantee you in the next 3 or 4 days, their house will sell when they cut the price. That's why we want to get you hooked up with a strong buyer's agent so they can go out and walk you through all that. The other thing is they have a lot of expertise on home inspections, how the appraisals work, and all that other stuff. So I'll get you a name and number of somebody I know that's good in the area you're looking because agents do have some geographic specialty. You know, you wouldn't if you're buying up near Monroe County, you wouldn't want the same agent if you're buying in Bowling Green. I have 2 favors after today, and they're relatively simple. It's a lot of information all at once. I don't expect you to remember it. There is no test. Don't stress. It's favor number 1. You seem like a normal, well-adjusted, happy human being. Don't let this make you crazy. You know, if you have to, keep renting rather than be stressed because being miserable and being a homeowner is no good. The second one is there's no such thing as a dumb question. I've learned to text. My teenage son has taught me how to do that. I have an iPhone 0 or whatever it is. It's the dinosaur phone, but it works, and I do get emails on it. Email me, call me on my phone, bug me. The more we communicate as you're shopping, the easier my job is. If I go back and remember the closing costs, I said, you bug me about how much to ask for. You show up here on a Monday without any closing costs written in, and you were only planning on putting $3,500 out of pocket, and I got to break the bad news, you now need $7,200 to buy the house, and you don't have it. Life stinks for both of us. Okay, if you would have called me on Thursday before you turned the offer in on Friday and we wrote the closing costs into the offer, it's good. So communicate. There's no such thing as a dumb question. My job is easier when we're on the same page, which is why I like to go over this up front, because you now basically have the whole process. So other than going to find a house, we're ready to go.
Cool.